times is that I wasn't always a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player. While it is true that I have been playing Yu-Gi-Oh since around 2003 when the game just about first came to the North America region, I haven't always been competitive. Obviously, I was like in 3rd grade when it came out, so I wasn't really taking the game too seriously. I was just one of the many kids that watched the anime and wanted to have the cards for himself. Now this matters because it means that I haven't always been so worried about card advantage and tempo and do-nothing cards and all this sort of stuff that I mentioned in all of my videos. In today's video, I want to go through some of my favorite casual Yu-Gi-Oh cards. These were cards that I used all the time. And you'll kind of notice here I put them in chronological order, and you'll also notice that they get more competitive as they go along. That just is because even by the end of my sort of casual era of Yu-Gi-Oh, which would have been about 2013-ish, even at that point, I still was more competitive than I was back in 3rd grade. Anyway, let's jump right in. And the first card is Dark Blade. Now, there are a plethora of different normal monsters that I could have put on this list, but I think if I really think back to the normal monster that I used the most and that I liked the most, it's Dark Blade. There were other cards I liked, like Aquamador and Launcher Spider, but Dark Blade went into pretty much every single deck that I played, and for a good reason. 1800 attack was a lot back in sort of elementary school Yu-Gi-Oh! And this guy was super strong because of that. And also, it mattered a lot that when I started to get a little better at Yu-Gi-Oh! And actually, I don't even know how I managed to get them, but I had a BLS and a Chaos Emperor Dragon at some point in elementary school. It was pretty crazy to think about, because these cards were still pretty expensive back then. Even with that in mind, though, when I got those cards and I took many of the really garbage cards out of my deck, I actually still kept Dark Blade in because it is a dark card. Those monsters. Now eventually I did take this card out of my deck, but for most of elementary school and middle school, Dark Blade was a staple in every single strategy that I ever would play, and it definitely hurt taking it out of my deck. I do want to mention that I did really enjoy that this card got a retrain. Obviously, it had some other forms when it came out. It even had an equip spell, but eventually got a retrain, and I think Order of Chaos. And that card's pretty cool. It's actually like a pretty unique way to beat light decks if you but I tried to make that card work. It didn't work so well, but it was cool that they did retrain my favorite card several years after I stopped playing it. And if that card ever does become an actual decent side deck choice, you bet that I will be playing it in whatever deck I can. While I pretty much did stop watching the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime after the original series back when I was a kid, I did catch a couple episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and one of my favorite cards from that series, at least the episodes that I watched when I was a kid, were the Aster Phoenix episodes. I really did like the Destiny Heroes. I thought they were cool and edgy and all the things that a 12-year-old really likes. And yeah, one of my favorite cards from that series was Destiny Hero Doomlord, and I played this card in a lot of decks. It certainly helped that this card was a common card, unlike a lot of the better Destiny heroes like Malicious, which were really hard to come by, but I actually liked Doomlord a lot, and you can sort of see where this fits in with the Dark Blade thing. Yes, this card is dark, so I can banish it for BLS. I pretty much played BLS and Chaos Emperor Dragon in every single deck until I realized that traditional format wasn't the actual format. But yeah, Doomlord is a pretty cool piece of spot removal, and I think what's interesting is that when I look at this card now, and I sort of remembered the effect looking back, I knew it like banished something. This is basically just a worse version of Eater of Millions, which kind of does lead into the fact that I really do enjoy playing Eater of Millions. I like the spot banishing cards at will, and I think that's a pretty cool idea. There aren't a ton of monster cards that do that. A lot of times you're catching dark monsters at small attack points. So I kind of see the similarities between Eater of Millions and Doomlord sort of in hindsight now. But Doomlord's a really cool card, and I played a lot of the Destiny Hero cards and all sorts of them that probably weren't very good. I remember liking Blade Master as well, and that card's obviously terrible. But Doomlord was a little bit more competitive than Dark Blade, and also I think I do want to mention one of the things that I noticed growing up when this was sort of happening is that the Destiny Hero cards in general, a lot of them had really small attack attack points like Doom Lord, and I think this is when I first realized that attack points aren't everything. Now maybe it's not the best example because Doom Lord is the best card, but this is about the time that I realized, hey, this one Doom Lord with 600 attack can just banish anything. It doesn't matter how much attack points their monster has, and that's kind of when I started looking at cards' effects more than their actual attack points, so it's a pretty big stepping stone for me becoming eventually a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player. I think I've mentioned this in past videos, but I was actually really excited when Synchro Monsters first came out, and I bought a ton of Duelist Genesis packs. Whatever I had as far as money pretty much went into those packs back then, and one of the cards that I pulled a lot of copies of because it's a common and a card that I played in many decks was Domino Effect. Now this card is hilariously bad. I probably should have played anything else like Lightning Vortex or Dark Hole or Sakuratsu Armor, although I'm pretty sure I did have multiple copies of Dark Hole and Sakuratsu Armor. But anyway, I shouldn't have played Domino Effect. It's not that good of a card, but what it does is when a monster your opponent controls is destroyed by battle from the graveyard, you can then get rid of one of your monsters to get rid of another one of their monsters. And I thought that was cool. There was a lot of flavor, a lot of power. The artwork really portrayed what the effect was doing really well, and I thought this card was awesome. Sort of in the same way that Hero Doom Lord can get rid of bigger monsters, a lot of times I would do these quote-unquote cool combos with Domino Effect where I would run over a smaller monster to take out my opponent's big boss monster, and a lot of the times that actually did win me those casual matchups, and I like this card a lot. Now, when I finally started to transition to competitive, which was around this time, as far as that weird, awkward couple-year period where I'm like not really playing a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh, but I'm getting older, so then when I go back to my old decks like once every summer, because pretty much I didn't play during my high school years as far as the school year went. I just came back and during the summer played at locals and stuff. And when I went back to my year-old decks, I was looking at cards like Domino Effect. As a grown adult person, I guess, I looked at them and said, okay, maybe this card isn't that good. And it's not to say that Domino Effect was a terrible card, but in any sort of competitive sense, it only works after the lunch table duels. While I didn't like this next card when it first came out, I stumbled upon it a little bit later in about 2012, and that is Coderas, and I love this card's artwork. Like, this card is so cool. I think if you have known me as far as you might know that I really do like light blue as a color. That's one of the reasons that steel is so awesome to me. And you can kind of see that Coderas has about the same color of body as far as steel does, so I don't know if that plays into it, but I love sea creatures. They're really cool. I've played mermaids a lot, and this card is so awesome, but it's also the first card on this list that you can actually see a real strategy formed around, because this card honestly isn't that bad, and obviously you can send Umi to the graveyard and pop 2 cards, but the cool thing about this card, well, it's 2 cool things. First off, there's a trap version that not only acts as Umi, but also you can protect the Coderas, and that's kind of cool, but also this thing does target, but it doesn't destroy the cards, and I can remember killing a whole bunch of Stardust Dragons with Coderas way back in the day. This card is not bad. Now that I'm looking at it, I wasn't thinking about this earlier. This card actually would be really interesting to add to duelings. I don't think it's bad. This card would be kind of cool. I would definitely play some Mermails if it's in duelings. I'll have to go look at it. I don't think it's in duelings. I would probably actually be played in the duelings is like I went back and I looked it up, and I did post a video about this card in 2014, and I'll post a list on there. It's really blurry because the uploading back then wasn't so hot. It was kind of like a rank 4 water deck using Coderas, using actual legendary ocean that you can search out with Warrior Mantis, all sorts of fun stuff. I thought that deck was really cool. Maybe I'll play it on stream sometime, but I really like Coderas, and I think if you can already sort of see this is like that transitionary period where I'm looking at better cards with real strategies. Even if they're not super competitive, this is definitely on another level than the 3 previous cards we've talked about. I would eventually really start trying to be competitive in Yu-Gi-Oh! In the events after the WCU in 2013. However, right before that, I distinctly remember that my last sort of casual strategy was a Machina-based deck, and one of the cards I was most excited for, released in April of that year, was Gearspring Spirit, and I was so excited for this card. You guys have no idea. I thought this was going to revolutionize the Machina deck, and I think I even was playing like Jugia in there. There were so many normal summons. I probably was playing Gadgets too, but this card I thought was like instant spot removal for anything, and also you could discard it from your hand and special summon a Machina Fortress from your graveyard. I thought this card was insane. Now, if you guys know about April 2013, this was also a set that Lavalval Chain got released in, and Daigiso Emerald, and Evil Swarms, but more importantly, Dragon Rulers and Spellbooks at full power were just around the corner, and that meant that my little Machina deck did not do super hot against those sort of actual meta decks, and I eventually had to drop it for a more stun-based strategy at the WCQ, and that was actually the first WCQ that I ever played in, which was really exciting for me. I think that at that WCQ, when I mean, this is something that happens if you've never been to the WCQ. A lot of people that get their first invite, especially if it wasn't like a top 8, it was just an invited spot, like a 32nd or 31st something, they go to that WCQ and they don't realize how competitive it is and how much harder it is than the normal regionals, especially if they've never been to a YCS like I hadn't been. And what happened is I went like 1-4 and then dropped, and it was just insane, and that really got me hooked. I think a lot of people that happen to them, they get hooked on the game and want to be really competitive because they realize there's so much more to it than they realize, or it's really discouraging and they quit forever. In my case, it got me hooked on this game competitively, and ever since then I've been trying to become better and better every single year, which I think I've done a pretty decent job of. Anyway though, that's gonna wrap up today's video talking about my favorite casual Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this change of pace. I know that it seems like I only think about competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, but not only do I play a ton of other games sort of casually, and I know my place in those games, I also at one point, the majority of my time in Yu-Gi-Oh was spent as a casual player, and I liked a lot of these cards. So I think it's important to remember that I haven't always been competitive, and that a lot of times I was just playing the cards that I liked their effects or I thought looked cool, all sorts of stuff that I see in my own comment section. Anyway though, let me know what you guys think about this video, and also if you want to hear more about sort of my experience in casual Yu-Gi-Oh. But I've probably rambled on for too long. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Bye.
Wings out. We can scan. Talion Bandit here. Ring closing in 10. It's close. Got a bogey on my marker.
The way that Konami gives us TCG exclusive archetypes in 2018, almost 2019, is very different from how they first started giving them to us. So back in the day, TCG exclusive archetypes pretty much didn't exist until Noble Knights came around. However, the Noble Knight sort of plan was to give us 1 or 2 Noble Knight cards in every single set for years. Like, I'm pretty sure the Noble Knight cards
Incoming care.
so let's just keep the deck that's getting released incrementally has to supposedly stand up to each format that it's released in, and better and better with time, but eventually you realize that the deck is working good. However, at the end of 2014, Konami released this crazy product called the Noble Knights of the Round Table box set, and it's crazy for a lot of reasons. The price tag got raised to $50, and they fit in a ton of different things to make up that back in the day, and I have one beta open, but that $50 price tag is a pretty big paywall compared to a lot of things. But some of the things that they gave us sort of made up for that. They gave us a full-size mat, which is something you don't really see in any official products besides prize support. That's pretty crazy. They gave you a fully holographic deck. Now, the holographic technology they used was Platinum Rare, which Konami was really excited about, but I think everyone kind of agreed was really average. You can see that in this video. It's sort of a weird version that they've never fully replicated to look exactly like it has in this box. To look exactly like this. There's been Platinum Gold rares, Platinum rares from this set, but we'll get to that in a minute. So that's kind of crazy. Power competitive cards, which is kind of unheard of for structure decks, and also at 7, which is really wild. And the whole thing is just sort of marketed towards competitive players. if you want to get into competitive play, it gives you like a free YCS entry, which is kind of fun and all that. Actually, if you wanted to build even a competent Noble Knight deck, you pretty much had to buy 3 entire boxes of this set, because Konami obviously doesn't want you to buy singles, they want you to buy the boxes, and spending $150 on a
launching missiles.
You don't need
45 to go.
play mats, you don't need
Fortunately,
that kind of
radar shows the ring's
Seemed
close.
a bit outrageous and not worth the price tag, because once you get up to that $150 price range, I mean, that's a lot to ask of someone that's just kind of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! When they could have spent that money on a much better deck. But in today's video, I wanted to take a look at it, open it, and see if it actually stands the test of time, or if it's just as bad as I remember. So without further ado, let's jump right in. One thing that you'll probably notice if you ever go ahead and purchase one of these boxes for some reason, even though they're kind of overpriced, is that it's actually huge. I mean, this thing is barely taking out, I mean, it's taking the entire frame.
10 seconds and the ring's
done.
Opening fire.
Get a bigger tripod, all that kind of stuff. I mean, this thing
Got a bandit close by.
way bigger than it actually needs to be.
Box 3, visual clear. Good tone.
That's a lot. You can see here just on the mobile in a second. We have
outside
three
the
lights.
Reloading. Last one down.
Nice work. And then also we have the mobile.
They usually carry red platforms.
Go ahead and open this. And like I said, I actually way back in 2014. I was just starting out college. I actually purchased 3 copies of these. So you have these 3 cards just by themselves. These were the 3 new cards, and this kind of gives you your first look at the platinum rarity. So the idea behind these, now I'm not going to say if this necessarily works.
Hold
I
up.
mean, the idea is that when you looked at it, it looks like that, where like, you can see the card, you can read it and stuff. But when your opponent looked at it, it looks like that. Well, actually, no. Wait a second. It's when you look at it, it's supposed to be this, where you can't see anything except the text box. Of course, the duelists, they want to see a text box. But when your opponent looks at it, they just are blinded by the rarity. What actually happens
Crashing and burning over here.
Perfect angle, which means it just kind of looks.
I got your back.
It's just gross. I don't know if the camera is kind of showing that. It's rough because when I do this, it doesn't actually look that bad. It looks a little darker, but almost all the time it's gonna look like this. Very appealing.
One second, healing up.
Put like a dark glaze over top of it. But yeah, these were the 3 new Noble Knight cards that they gave me for this. They pretty much have every Noble Knight card in existence except the Noble Knight Brothers, which has since been reprinted. But other than Noble Knight Brothers, pretty much all of the Noble Knight cards
down
were
from
in
16,
It's
the
kind
ring's
of cool,
close
but
by.
yeah, Merlin's obviously really good at selling
Alert 5,
cards.
Valkyrie on standby, ready for burn. Burn is a go.
Those were the 3 new cards there. Those
Make sure seat backs, tray tables, and automatic
once again, this kind of shows that they're really just trying to push competitive players on the deck, but it ended up just being way too expensive. Oh, no, card expires May 31st, 2015. Well, we tried. We were close. It has this power-up pack, which is also printed in this platinum rarity. I should mention that of all the things in
Box
here,
3, sending it home.
the power-up pack is actually really good.
Come on in.
They actually
Reloading.
Good night. Add in the 3 cards that they give us. 40.
Cracked an enemy shield.
3 extra deck monsters, which is cool. And then we have the sleeves, the good old sleeves here. That's like the normal field spell artwork. It's pretty cool. Yeah, Konami sleeves are just not very good.
Reloading.
And then we have the Noble Knight map, which we'll look at in a second. The last thing in the box. Cardboard box. Official Konami opening. Put your deck in here.
Charging on my shield.
Deck box. It's ridiculous. This thing is like gigantic. I mean, it's completely unnecessary.
Healing up.
Handy dandy instructions. Oh, that's not even. They give you some handy dandy instructions on how to build it, because it's actually kind of like annoying to build. It doesn't. I don't know. I have a couple of them laying around the house. They're not that great. But let's actually switch angles here and put the mat on display so you guys can see that. Alright, now that we switched over to this mat, you can kind of see what it looks like. I actually think it's pretty cool. It shows a lot of